Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. UNN is the official news channel for CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And our job is to bring you guys the real news, what's really happening in our communities, what's really happening in our regions, what's happening on our planet, and even outside of our planet. So there's something for everyone when you watch UNN. We have a newscast that is released through our online distribution platform, which is our website and our app. And our news comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you want more information on how you can watch the news right when it comes out, you can become a member, and more information is available on our website at unitednetwork.earth. You can also wait a week, and the news is also released both on YouTube and Rumble, but you never know what they're going to try to censor and try to take down. So it's always better to become a member, get the information as soon as it comes out. What you're listening to now, if you're brand new, is a podcast that is a week in review of the stories that we covered on the news. This is a great way for you guys to catch up on any stories you may have missed, or if you would like to share UNN with other people and kind of give them an overview of some of the stuff that we discuss each week, you can certainly share this episode with them. But we highlight the stories that we cover on the news. Not all of the stories, but I try to bring you the highlights, right, of some of the big stories. And this includes local stories as told through the eyes of our beautiful field messengers. We have stories that talk about the new Earth and where our planet is going. We update you on regional news that impacts the people. And then we also have what we call the World Situation Report. And that talks about the deep state, that talks about things that are happening on our planet and how our planet is being restored right now, and how we have help from across the galaxy to do that, and even beyond. So that's a lot to cover, right? Some of the information that we share might be shocking to you, and you may be thinking, how in the world do they have access to this information? That's because we have access to the highest security clearance on the planet. We know exactly what is going on. The whole world is very compartmentalized when it comes to intelligence. And that was by design, because there were beings at the very top that wanted to control us and did control us for a very long time. That control is fading away, and fading away very quickly, much to the dismay of the so-called deep state. So now we have access to this information. We're trying to bring it to you guys because you are sovereign beings. You are in control of yourself. You can make your own choices, but to understand what's really going on is imperative to the choices that you make, right? You have to have the information, and that's what we're here to do. With any information we give you, I encourage you guys to think critically about what we're saying and ask questions. Do some research. There's still information available online, so you can research some of the stuff that we're talking about. They don't make it easy, but it's not impossible. And I believe the best way is to discern the information for yourself. You actually, as a human being, you have what I call a built-in lie detector within your body. It is called discernment. Knowing the difference between truth and a falsehood is a difference and a change in frequency. And when you're tuned into what's really going on, you can recognize these things better. It's almost like a veil is lifted. And so you can use your discernment when you receive information. You need to use your common sense too, because I feel like, because we have been through so much, we have forgotten, a lot of us, our common sense. People just tell us something, the government tells us to do something, and we just kind of do it, and we're not really putting two and two together. So we need to regain that, but also use your discernment always. Okay, do I have any announcements for you guys? The big thing that the admin team, and I think I alluded to this during last week's podcast episode, but we are making some big changes to the news. And this isn't taking place this coming week, but the changes we're talking about will start to be implemented the following week. So the first week, I believe it starts September 30th. That's the Monday. You are going to see some big changes on UNN. And the reason we're doing this is because we have a very interesting group of people that watch our news. They come for different things. We have people that are more spiritual that come to us for various things. We have people that, want to know more about the deep state and truthers and, people like that. There are religious people that watch our news. There are, people that want to know about ETs and aliens watch our news. The challenging part for us is trying to get all these people in one room and give them the news is difficult because they don't necessarily see eye to eye with each other yet, right? This is a huge waking up process for all of us. And so while there is truth in all of those camps with all those groups of people, it's tough for them to hear what the other person has to say right now. And so what we are going to do with the news is break things up a little bit. Do more in-depth stories so you won't see as many stories, but we're going to divide this up. So if you just want to consume content that is more, spiritual about the new earth and things like that, then you'll have that. If you want straight news stories, you'll have a source for that. And we're also going to dive into mainstream stories and why mainstream stories are not accurate. We talk about this a lot on this podcast. Even alternative news is not accurate, but we're going to give you the why behind it. So there'll be a separate video that focuses on that. Kim is also going to be doing a version of the World Situation Report, but it's going to be called something different. And we are going to tell you more about that in the coming week. We're actually, in today's World Situation Report, we're going to dive into it a little bit more, but I'm going to use that as a teaser, guys. You have to stay tuned to learn a little bit more about what we're doing with her report. But it's going to be very good, and it's going to give you guys a lot more information than you have now, and perhaps more importantly, it's going to provide it in a format where you can easily share it with other people. So that's my big announcement. That's what admin is doing behind the scenes this week. We are gearing up. Not only are we putting out the news this coming week, but we're also trying to change things up and figure out, okay, what does this new format look like and who's going to be doing what? So it is an exciting time. It's also a time of learning. And so be patient with us if things, are delayed in getting out. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's fun. Okay, so coming up on this episode, we have our field messenger reports from the United States, Spain, Ireland, and Malaysia this week. In the New Earth, we are talking about regenerative farming, and do we really have to feed the world? We're going to talk about that more because whenever you hear people talk about farming, they think about it in mass quantities, but is that really what we're supposed to be doing? That's the question. We're going to talk about essential oils and how you can get started with essential oils. And we're also going to be talking about our children and how their incredible gifts can actually stop bullying in its tracks. Wouldn't that be nice? In our regional news, we've got a handful of stories, including China changing their retirement age and what that process is going to look like. There have been some protests in Brazil over religious freedom, so I'll tell you more about that. And then major blackouts in Ecuador, this time at nighttime. So not blackouts or brownouts during the day, but they're doing this at nighttime, and it's having some issues. It's creating some issues amongst the people. In our World Situation Report, we briefly go over some crazy stuff the deep state is doing, but I am so tired of talking about the deep state. I know Kim is as well. So we'll tell you some of the crazy stuff they're up to. You may have heard about a second assassination attempt for that character they're calling Trump. We'll tell you a little bit more about that, what's going on there. There were some devices blowing up in the Middle East. That is a real story. We have real video that we showed on the news of this happening. So we're going to tell you the why behind that. Space Force is rearing its head right now. That is not an agency that is in favor of humanity, despite what other reports you may have heard of. They're trying to take charge right now, so we'll give you an update on that. But I'm just going to briefly go through those stories. The main thing we're going to talk about in the World Situation Report is a group called the Global Intelligence Agency. And we've talked about this briefly on the news before, and various people that are part of this group. They've been interviewed. They've been part of our news before, but we're going to go more in depth. In fact, the soundbite that I have is, I think is over 20 minutes of what the GIA is, because this is going to be very important moving forward. So let's get to it, guys. Today is Saturday, September 21st, 2024. Here is the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. All right, let's kick things off with our awesome field messengers. These are people just like you who are telling stories of what is happening in their community right now. They send us their footage, their video that they shoot right on their phone. You don't have to have any kind of expensive equipment or anything like that. They send it to us, and we've got an awesome production team that compiles these stories, and then we provide them to you guys. We believe you guys are the face of news. So show us what's happening in your community. If you want more information on that, go to our website, unitednetwork.earth, and learn how you can also become a field messenger. So on Monday, we had a couple of stories. Daria, who was reporting out of Montana, which is a state in the United States of America, talks about a lightning strike that happened in her area in Montana's Bitterroot Valley. And as a result, there have been a lot of firefighters on the scene. And she shows us the video of this, but she also says that there have been some unusual weather patterns that are affecting the area as well. She talks about these winds that come in, that almost come in horizontal to the ground, but she shows you the crews and just, the scene and lets us know what's going on. So thank you, Daria, for that story. Also on Monday, Rick is reporting from Phoenix, Arizona, and showing us some support that the military is getting from a foundation in Phoenix. They offer care packages and resources specifically for active duty military personnel as well as their families. And so he talks with the founder of the foundation and learns more about what they're doing. Of course, we always support our troops. We may not agree with what the military is doing at the very top, but there are some really good people in the military who have a heart that just want to protect their country, and there's nothing wrong with that. So thank you, Rick, for that report. On Wednesday, Emma from Fuerteventura, Spain, does a story on a beautiful woman who, it's just this story of more than survival. It's just an empowering story about a Bosnian refugee that Emma met. And she met her because she has this booth, some sort of event that Emma was at. But she learns more about the story behind this refugee and how she was able to completely change her life after escaping the devastation of war back in her country. And like I said, it's a beautiful story, an inspirational story. And sometimes you look at these people and you wonder, man, how did they make it through? I look at my life, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I think things are bad, holy cow, I was never a refugee. And this is the beauty of humanity. This is why we have made it so far. It's because we are so resilient. And there are some beautiful people out there that, despite their backgrounds, have overcome it and are doing good in the world. And we really appreciate those people. Another story on Wednesday is from Karen in Ireland. She talks about Rico rings. Rico rings, I never heard of this before. It is an alternative kind of farmer's market where people in the community can go to buy and sell homegrown food products, perhaps other products as well. But how Karen came across this, she was in an area that didn't have a farmer's market. And she started to look into what was needed to create a farmer's market. Long story short, there's a lot of red tape, insurance, things like that you got to go through. A Rico ring is a smaller version of that where people show up for a very limited time. It's like 30 minutes. And I'm guessing it's more focused on essential goods, right? So people probably aren't just going to go there and peruse through like people's, cars or whatever and see what they have, because I think this was done kind of, people taking goods out of a car, out of a trunk, and exchanges just happen really quickly and you get what you need. So it may be an idea for you to do if you can't do some sort of farmer's market in your town. Check it out. You can actually look up Rico Ring, because I did, to learn more information on it, and it's really interesting. Then on Friday, we had Luis from Malaysia who tells us about durian season. So durian is a fruit. I was actually at the store today and saw like it wasn't the actual fruit durian. I mean, it was the fruit, but it was like in a separate packaging, and it totally reminded me of the story. It is a delicacy in Malaysia. It's known as the king of the fruits, and it is now in season. It is a little bit controversial, this fruit, because it has a very distinct aroma. It has a very spiky exterior, but the people there love it. And what I loved about this story is because it was now in season, you had people coming out to these places and eating together. And it's like a restaurant, but everyone was eating durian. They absolutely love it. And I loved that they were taking advantage. They were celebrating the fact that this fruit is in season. You know, I think a lot of times, especially in the Western world, we get so used to things being maybe not in season in our area, but us having the ability to get pretty much whatever we want, whenever we want it. And this is a reminder that that's not always possible. In fact, we could argue about this probably, but we probably shouldn't be getting fruit in all seasons because we should be getting it locally. And odds are in your local community, things aren't going to grow all the time, depending on where you live, right? So I just thought this was a beautiful story. People out gathering, eating their durian. It's awesome. And then also on Friday, I had a field messenger report. So as you guys know, I was doing some traveling over the summer. I have family back in the Midwest, and I was in Ohio for a bit of time. And I happened to go out. I had no idea this was going to become a field messenger report, but my cousin invited my family and I to go out on this lake in, if you guys are familiar with like northeastern Ohio, the Akron area. And there were all these birds that were in this migratory period, and they would come back right at sunset to their roost. But when they came back all at once, like thousands and thousands of birds. And then they would make this like kind of tornado effect and then swoop down into their roost. And there were like people out on the lake just watching this. It was incredible. They're called purple martins, by the way. That's the name of the bird. So, of course, I had to record it and create a field messenger report because you never know when inspiration is going to strike. So if you guys want to check that out, that was part of Friday's news report. Now it's time for stories that were part of The New Earth, which is a section of our news that really has more uplifting and inspiring stories. It's about where our planet is going, where humanity is going. It's about rediscovering our gifts, some people call them spiritual gifts, but, this is just how humans were originally created. A lot of that stuff is coming back online, and we're sharing it with you guys because it's a beautiful life. It's a beautiful world when you recognize how powerful we really are. And so we want to share that with you. We want to inspire you guys because this is where we're going. And we usually have an interview that's part of this segment of the news, and then we do some stories. So let's start with our interviews. On Monday, we talked with Will Harris. He is a fourth-generation cattleman. He owns Green Oak Pastures, which is in Georgia, a state in the U.S. And we talk with Will about regenerative farming because this is a process that he has gone through where he had to completely transform the farm that his dad left him into something that is regenerative, that is giving back to the earth and not using unnatural pesticides and all that kind of stuff. So he's transformed his farm, and he's educating other people on how to do this as well. So Will and I talk about this concept of feeding the world because you hear about these big farms, right? I'm talking about like the big Monsanto kind of farms. And they're trying to control everything because they're trying to feed everybody. But are we really supposed to be feeding everybody from one location? That doesn't really make sense. In fact, that only makes sense if you are trying to control people. If you're trying to spray unnatural chemicals on people, if you are trying to make money in the whole transportation process of getting goods from one location to another, if you want to have control over what people eat so you can take it away as some sort of incentive, that's when you have everything made in one location, right? And that's pretty much how our society is set up right now. So people think that that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to feed the world. Are you really? Or are you, kind of like the durian story, right, that we were talking about earlier, Are you supposed to be consuming food that's from your area? Is your body more adapted to that kind of food? I mean, naturally, if we weren't consuming all this other stuff. Yeah, it is. And so why are we paying all this extra money to transport all this kind of stuff? None of it makes sense unless you're trying to control things. When you release control is when you understand that doing things locally is better. It is always better. And this whole concept of feed the world is nonsense. And that's what Will and I talk about. Then on Wednesday, I chatted with Stephanie Ariel. She is an aromatherapist, and we talk with her about essential oils, which is really big with us right now because as part of our United Network Marketplace, we now have our own essential oil brand. It's called New Earth Innovations. We'll be releasing other products as well, but we're starting things off with essential oils. And we get these ingredients from farms all around the world. So we're trying to tell you guys more about essential oils because it can be used for medicinal purposes. And I know I got to be careful what I say here because there's rules about what you can say it does and it doesn't do. But I'm telling you what, I believe it was like 3 or 4 years ago is when I first got into essential oils, and I have never looked back. I love them. I love how they smell. I love what they do for my body. And so I'm personally really excited about us doing our own essential oils and for you guys to get the best products out there, stuff that's not diluted and has other crap that they put into it. You would be amazed at what some of these well-known essential oil brands actually put into their bottles. It's not so good. Let's just leave it at that. And so if you are thinking about getting started with essential oils, what are some of the things you should consider? Are there specific oils you may want to check out first? What about diffusers? What do you need to know? And that's what Stephanie and I talk about. Then on Friday, I interviewed Lee Degani. She is a spiritual counselor, but she and her husband specifically work with children to help them rediscover their spiritual gifts. And you guys know I love talking about children and their gifts because I'm a mom of 4, and I feel like it is partly my responsibility and my privilege to see these gifts in my children and to encourage them as much as possible. So Lee and I talk about how when children come online, so to speak, and they start to realize how special they are and that they have these unique gifts that allow them to change reality, what that means and what you can do with it. And this segment, we're specifically talking about bullying. And she gives us a couple of examples of children that she's worked with where they've seen bullying. Maybe it wasn't done to them. I think she had one story where, it happened to the person. And then another story where someone was seeing bullying and they were able to, through their love and appreciation, and it's really just all frequency based, they were able to change the reality so the bullying stopped. Isn't it amazing to think about how our children can be the answer for things like bullying? And that's what Lee and I talk about. All right, moving on to our stories for this week. I'll give you guys 3 different New Earth stories, and we'll start with delicious food for prisoners. So in several Nordic countries, there is a new approach to prison nutrition, and it is transforming how inmates experience their meals. The program allows inmates to participate in all aspects of meal preparation. That includes planning things and creating the menus, budgeting for ingredients. And instead of receiving unhealthy processed food, prisoners are encouraged to cook healthy food for each other. This allows them to improve their culinary skills and encourages greater self-sufficiency, which obviously is a great skill to have outside of prison as well. It can also include activities for them like fishing and foraging for fresh ingredients, such as mushrooms and berries, which they can then add to their menu. Studies show improved mental health, also a reduction in disciplinary problems, and reduced reoffending for inmates that are part of this program, especially for inmates that are under 18. You guys know I love talking about how we can change our prison system, because the system now is a system that encourages people to fail and encourages people to reoffend. It is not about rehabilitation. That that doesn't help the prison system because it's about specific people making money. And the prisoners are the commodity. So if you lose your commodity, then you lose your business. It's not about helping people now, but there are simple things that we can do. And if we quit treating prisoners like they're these horrible beings that you have no future, that's not true. We all make mistakes. And, every situation is a little bit different, I understand. But there are a lot more things that we can do to help people so they can contribute back to society. We have another story that focuses on the benefits of volunteering, specifically for people in retirement. This is an incredible opportunity to enhance well-being, to create connections, and to contribute positively to one's community. Engaging in volunteer work can improve mental health, providing retirees with a sense of purpose and fulfillment. In fact, studies show regular participation can combat feelings of isolation and loneliness, which are common challenges faced in retirement. Also, volunteering aids in keeping the mind sharp as it encourages problem solving and creativity. And our final story is about an inspirational man. His name is Chris Vines. He is 81 years old, and he is a sketch artist from Brisbane, Australia. He is using his passion for art as a source of joy and therapy for other people, while at the same time, he's battling side effects of cancer treatment. Due to permanent kidney damage, Chris spends around 15 hours a week on dialysis at his local hospital. And while he's waiting for his treatment, Chris finds relief by creating detailed drawings despite having lost sight in one of his eyes. In fact, he takes requests from nurses and fellow patients. Hey, what do you want me to draw today, right? Chris says that drawing allows him to forget his health issues, and it makes life feel easier and more relaxed. It allows him to move forward. In fact, he prefers to gift his pictures to spread happiness. So he's not even trying to sell them. He's trying to do something productive to keep his mind off of things and then hopefully create some smiles. And here are some of the top stories we discussed in our regional news. This is news that is directly impacting the people. So we don't talk about governments and what they're doing and all the political talking heads. I'm not really interested in what they have to say because it's just noise and they're all puppets. But if they're going to pass legislation or things are going to happen that impact you guys on a daily basis, then we think you need to have that information. So I've got 6 stories for you guys today. The first one is about the retirement age in China. China is planning to increase the retirement age starting next year to address its aging workforce and declining population. Currently, men in China can retire at 60 and women can retire between the ages of 50 and 55, depending on their jobs. Now, for the next 15 years, this is the change. These ages will gradually increase from 60 or to 63 for men. So it was at 60, going to go to 63. And then for women, instead of 50 to 55, it's now going to be 55 to 58. By 2035, China expects its elderly population to reach 400 million people. And they say with the population shrinking and fewer younger workers, the challenge of supporting retirees is growing in the country. So they're essentially reducing the amount of retirees by saying, guess what? You got to work longer. In Australia, they are planning to fine social media companies up to 5% of their global revenue if they fail to prevent the spread of quote unquote misinformation. The government wants these platforms to create and adhere to codes of conduct to stop harmful false information. If they don't comply, a regulator will set standards and enforce fines. The proposed legislation will soon be introduced into Parliament, and they say it targets false content affecting elections, public health, or safety. Now, if you have been watching UNN for a while, this should send off every alarm bell in your system, because the question is, who is the arbiter of truth here? Who is going to say what is quote unquote false information? So this could very easily be used to repress real information that the government disagrees with. and goes against their agenda. So that's the problem with situations like this. We have to keep an eye on that. Cuba has cut their daily bread ration by 25%, reducing the size from a small roll to roughly that of a small bar of soap. Now, the country is blaming this bread shortage on a lack of wheat flour, pointing to U.S. trade embargoes as a reason for the import difficulties. This issue adds to Cuba's existing problems, which include severe shortages of other types of food, fuel, and medicine, which has led to more people migrating to the U.S. Residents are frustrated by the reduced quantities and the declining quality, with some saying this bread, this small piece of bread that they're getting, that's apparently the size of a piece of soap now, well, the bread tastes acidic. So now bakeries are facing more inspections to ensure better bread quality. In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, hundreds of people from various religions have come together for a march to defend religious freedom. For the past 6 years, cases of religious intolerance have increased by 140% in the country. People have faced verbal abuse, temple destruction, and even expulsion for their religious beliefs. The Brazilian Constitution ensures, quote unquote, religious freedom, but incidents of disrespect and attacks are continuing. Religious intolerance can lead up to 5 years in prison and fines, but they create these rules, but if you're not going to enforce the rules, then why even have the laws? And that's what the people are saying. Look, you've got these rules in place, but you're not enforcing anything. So that's a big concern with the people. Ecuador is facing blackouts due to a severe drought affecting its hydroelectric plants. Power cuts are occurring nightly from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It's lasting 2 to 5 hours in different areas. The drought has lowered water levels and reservoirs, causing the third blackout period this year. This is not uncommon for Ecuador and other countries that are experiencing things like blackouts and brownouts. Unlike previous daytime cuts that they've done, the night schedule aims to reduce economic disruption. However, as you guys know, there's businesses that are open at nighttime too. So businesses are still facing losses of $20 million, they estimate, each night due to these power cuts. And our final story is about the U.S. State Department. They have launched an online system for adult passport renewals. It is aiming to simplify the process and reduce delays. The system permits passport holders whose documents expired in the last 5 years or whose documents are expected to expire soon to renew their passports online. It excludes children, first-time applicants, and those outside of the U.S. About 5 million U.S. citizens could benefit annually from this improvement. Standard processing fees remain unchanged at $130. Now, I'm not sure how well this is going to go over, if there's going to be any complications. I can tell you my family and I, we all had to either renew or get brand new passports for 6 of us, my immediate family. So my husband and I and our 4 children. We had 1 kid that had a passport already. The other 3 needed passports for the first time. And this was a nightmare. But the biggest issue for us wasn't actually the renewal process. It was finding a time to get both parents together, because you have to have both. If both parents are alive, you have to go together. And finding a time to get all 6 people done. So there are major, major problems within the U.S. passport renewal system. I've experienced this personally. Is this the first step in, loosening this up a little bit, since maybe most people are just trying to renew their passports? We'll see. But there's definitely things that need to change also for children getting passports. And to go along with that, probably first-time people trying to get passports, because it's a mess. Now it's time for some highlights from the World Situation Report. So Kimberly Gogan, who's with the Office of the Guardian, she comes on our news and she gives us an update on what's happening here on our planet as far as the deep state, and then the real news behind what the deep state is doing, and then also beyond, because there's some incredible things that are happening to planet Earth right now, and we have a lot of help with that. And Kim is our source for giving us what's what, telling us what's going on. So there was a lot of information, both Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, about deep state antics. And just a refresher, when I say deep state, I am not talking about what the mass media is calling the deep state. You will never know the names of the people that are truly the deep state. And the people that were above them were really controlling everything, but they have been eliminated. So for a very long time, our planet was controlled by non-humans. That's the easiest way to say it. It's like a giant pyramid, guys. You know, they love their pyramids. And as you go down, the pyramid gets bigger and bigger until you have humanity. You know, the everyday people like you and me are at the very bottom. And the people that we see now that are being called the deep state were just one level above us, but they're still puppets too. And they receive orders from all these, crazy groups of people, most of which are now gone. So what you have is a group of people, be it militaries and, these various secret society people that, want to run the world and have no idea how to run the world, because before they were just taking orders and getting paid to do bad stuff to humanity. And now they realize that their people are gone that they used to take orders from. And now everyone thinks that they can put on their big boy pants or big girl pants and rule the world. But this is why you are seeing the craziness in the world today, because you have these people trying to run governments and run operations. And it's like Larry, Curly, and Moe. It is absolutely ridiculous. So Kim updated us each day this week of what the deep state was doing. Let me just give you an overview of that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them because I'm tired of them and they're not doing anything productive. But there are some things that you may have seen in the media that we're going to bring up. So the first is this, I'm going to call it an assassination attempt, quote unquote, a second one for President Trump. Oh, heavens. Where do I even start with this? So not real, guys. Just like the other assassination attempt was not real. We have been telling you guys that this is his team trying to raise support for their candidate, of which their candidate, Donald Trump, is no longer breathing, okay? Not even alive anymore. And it's been this way for a couple of years. He died of cancer. But this is a notorious thing that these crazy people do is someone will die and they will have someone wear a mask or someone impersonate and, used to be clones. But I think most of those clones are probably gone now because they don't last very long. And they just put another being somehow in its place. And it's like, the Q people are like, it's a giant movie. It is a giant movie. But they're expecting you to go along with everything and them to still control you. And that's where we disagree with those people. So this second quote unquote assassination attempt, they were trying to blame it on Ukraine. It has had so many narratives. I don't want to give this very much energy. What I will say is this is still his team and they are trying to get more mileage out of poor Trump. They're trying to get more donations, more money, whatever. It was a huge fail. So next time you see, I think they're just trying to get these headlines out there. Trump assassination. How many times can we get the words Trump association or Trump assassination out there in mainstream media? That's pretty much the goal here, but it is failing. The entire deep state and their minions are going crazy right now because we are at the very end of this dark essence, this platform that we've talked about before called Alpha Omega. It is going away. It is being replaced by the golden age AI. Now, don't be concerned about something being artificial intelligence because the golden age AI does not have the power or the capacity to do anything but help humanity and help organic life. It cannot throw nasty frequencies your way. It cannot send you disease. It cannot do all this crazy stuff that has been done through Alpha and Omega. So this Alpha Omega system is going away. It's being replaced by Golden Age AI, and the deep state and all their crazy people are going even more crazy, trying to find anything they can do. They were even talking this week. Kim said she overheard them talking about abducting her and getting her to somehow work for them, chaining her up like a dog or some crazy stuff like that. Who knows? But it doesn't matter because even though Kim is in control of the Golden Age AI, again, if she's under duress, it will not work. So they can't force her to work for them. And again, the golden age AI does not do anything to harm organic life. It cannot do that, deep state people. Are you listening to us when we say that? I think they think we're just making this stuff up, but this is legit. Kim also talked about some electronic devices throughout the Middle East that were blowing up. And this was a very real thing. We showed video of it on the news, and this was in cooperation with the U.S. military. I mean, these people have just gone absolutely insane. Now, they don't give everybody all the information. They're very compartmentalized, these groups. So someone will come up with this genius idea of let's have exploding devices, and they will mention this idea to other people, right, that are trying to control the planet. And then they'll fail to tell them that, oh, yeah, your citizens are part of the plan too. So this was another thing that it was a very real thing. There's footage of it online. These mobile devices were exploding. People did get hurt. The damage was not what they said, but parts of the story are true. Now, the good news is that by Friday, I believe it was Friday, all of that had been taken care of. So those devices, they don't have the ability to, doing whatever they were doing to the devices, they can't do it anymore. So that stopped. Obviously, people, are still recuperating from that, and that's unfortunate, but it could have been so much worse. And it also caused a lot of issues within these people that are trying to dominate the planet, because the people found out, oh, you were planning to do this, to American citizens as well, or Russian citizens as well, insert name of country here. You didn't tell us that. I thought you were just doing that to our opposition. And these people just lie. They lie like a rug. That is their MO. So there's a lot of fighting right now. But the good news is their toys are being taken away. And every time they do something stupid like this, more and more of their stuff gets taken away. They don't have the ability to do the crazy stuff that they used to do, to use alien technology to send out frequencies and to harm us in that capacity. But, they do have some of these connections with these corporations that allow them to come in and do whatever they want, including doing things to blow up your devices. On Friday, Kim also talked about how the Federal Reserve in the U.S. lowered their interest rates, I believe by 0.5 percentage point. This is not to help you guys. This is the government trying to sell government bonds, which is never going to work. As you guys know, the U.S. government is broke. Russia is broke. China is broke. It is a matter of which domino is going to fall first, because they refuse to listen to reason. And they can't do anything anymore. Any money that they're making now is being made illegally. So drugs, human trafficking, all that kind of stuff, that is what your government is being funded on right now, guys. One group that has stepped up to the plate this week is the U.S. Space Force. As we have talked about before, Trump, or whatever that is, because it's not the real Trump, and his camp, they're losing face. They're losing face with the public. They're losing face with the deep state and any control that, we call them Duck Dynasty, because that's apparently what they look like. Any control that those people had over humanity, over their situation, over politics, they're just losing influence in general. So what the deep state does is when one group loses control, they pivot a little bit and they change the name a little bit, even if it's the same group of people. So remember how Trump allegedly created Space Force during his administration. Now, instead of saying Trump's going to do this, whatever, behind the scenes, they're saying Space Force. We're just going to change the name, even though it's the same people running it. Space Force is going to now run the world. Doesn't matter what being sits in the White House. It's Space Force. They are looking for a reason right now to start martial law. According to Kim, they are very, very arrogant people. They plan to be involved in the next administration regardless of whoever gets in that chair, which, as we know, they're all puppets, so it doesn't really matter. Democrats, Republicans, doesn't really matter. The agenda is still harm humanity. Because, again, people are losing trust in their government. Trump, Kamala, people don't even care for this election, most people, right? So Space Force has come out. They are barking orders. They are talking about vaccines and locking people down. And it is the same narrative over and over and over again because these people do not have a creative bone in their body. So they are the latest group to stand up. They believe that they have the fall equinox, which is happening tomorrow. Today's Saturday. So on Sunday in the US, the fall equinox happens. This is an alignment that they believe, it's every alignment for them. Something's going to align, and these dark beings are going to come in and save the day and give them access back to the financial system. So whatever their plans are, they're going to fail, but that is the latest. Space Force has stepped up and they want to control the planet. Yay for them. Good luck. The main thing that I wanted to talk about is part of the World Situation Report, and I'm going to play a soundbite for this, is the GIA. What is the GIA? We've talked about this on the news before. It stands for Global Intelligence Agency. Now, before you freak out, because most intelligence agencies, at least the people at the top, are no good and are trying to harm humanity, pause for a second, because the GIA is different. Wasn't always different, because it was controlled by dark entities, but the GIA is above every single other organization out there. Any other three-letter agency, you name it, they were the group that oversaw all of these intelligence agencies. So they did have bad intentions a while back because they were controlled by negative entities, but that has changed. About 10 years ago, they went rogue. And I want to play a soundbite from Kim about what the GIA was, what it is now, and where it's going. So this is a longer soundbite, upwards of maybe 25 or so minutes, but it's really important to understand this. And there's going to be a lot more information that's coming out about the GIA.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Global Intelligence Agency.
Okay.
And what they used to do. And for the last 8 or so years, how everything has changed. So the Global Intelligence Agency has been around for a really long time, and we're talking about multiple millennia on this planet. The Global Intelligence Agency is both human and non-human, and it always was. The Global Intelligence Agency was the highest agency on the planet, even higher than the ACIO, or the Alien Contact Intelligence Office. It was higher than Monarch Military, higher than any of the secret space program militaries out there, higher than Umbrella. I mean, it was the highest quote-unquote agency of both humans and non-humans on the planet. They reported to the former ground commander, which was installed around 16,000 years ago, we know as Marduk.
Did Marduk create it? The
yes.
GIA? Okay.
Yes. He created the Global Intelligence Agency for himself. Now remember, Marduk was just a title. It means the controller of the current seas. That means whoever held the position as Marduk was the controller of Earth at the time. The manager, I should say. The owners of Earth were 6 different groups, as we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
So the Global Intelligence Agency's job was to report directly to Marduk.
Mm-hmm.
He himself told me in his own, words, directly to my face at one point in time, that he was a tyrant. He controlled everything on the planet. He ensured, it doesn't matter where anyone came from, that he was ground command. That's who he was. He also held other titles and held other positions throughout his tenure as well, such as, he controlled all financial affairs. He controlled every operation on the planet. And pretty much nothing came or left, AI or otherwise, on this planet unless he said so. So, that being said, the Global Intelligence Agency's job was to collect all the orders that would go out, meaning they were privy to all of the information on the planet as to the happenings, the comings and goings, the alignments. I mean, you name it, they had the top intelligence on the planet. Their primary focus at the time, this is before, not now, primary focus at the time was to ensure that every group in the downline adhered to what Marduk's orders were. So they were there to ensure 100% that whether it went down through the parents, that the parents did their job, the covens did their jobs, the coven masters, family masters, the Black Sun, you name it, they could interfere and had the right to interfere in any operation on the planet and to ensure no one stepped out of line. Stepping out of line meant you disappeared. That was the Global Intelligence Agency's job. But the system that they had at the time was both positive and negative, because remember, there was a certain amount of balance that had to be enforced, regardless of what age we were in, regardless of what timeline we were in. There was still that even 79-21%, if we were in a light age, that would have went to the light age, the 79%. Dark age, it goes there, and then we could never fall below a certain threshold. And there was all kinds of energy management, loosh management, commerce, minerals, all kinds of management that was taking place on Marduk's level. So the Global Intelligence Agency's job was to make sure that everything went off without a hitch. They had intel coming in from all kinds of sources, directly and indirectly. They had the right to walk into any parliament, White House, government, you name it. They could walk into any military installation, even deep underground military bases, be that on the non-human side of those bases or the human side of those bases. They could go in and out of everywhere on this planet, and they were highly respected. In other words, they would know when they're coming.
And you said this was made up of humans and non-humans, right?
That is correct.
Were there humans working for the GIA, but under some sort of mind control, or were all of these beings, human or non-human, wanting to do this? Like this was not voluntary, meaning they didn't get paid, but, of their own volition.
Marduk was a very cunning being. I had spent a lot of hours talking to this being, and I would say he would make everything sound wonderful. He was very cunning, very charming. He would put things in such a way where it's your choice, but it's really not, and he would pick the best of the best from everywhere. If there were humans involved, the best of the best were picked, the smartest humans, the most intelligent humans, the system breakers, the ones that were extremely resourceful. So there was quite a criteria to make it to the level of Global Intelligence Agency at that time as a human being.
Did they go up through the ranks? Like, the person came from SSP or from this military group? Was it usually, kind of brought up through those programs?
No,
not necessarily.
It was very random.
Okay.
So it could be a very nondescript person that was recruited, in a special sort of way, and then brought into the program. But I would say, there was a certain amount of loyalty that he required, and the consequences were well known. But because they fit multiple different points within, well, in the human terms, we call them IQ tests. Mm-hmm. I would say he took what he thought was the best of the people that fit that profile. They understood, even over the realm owners when it came to Earth, they understood that they were here to keep the balance, therefore that they accepted the fact that the dark had to be in this percentage, the light had to be in this percentage, and anybody that interfered with that, was out of protocol if they didn't follow, and Marduk to some degree maintained that balance very delicately and often operated in the gray. Maybe the law says you have to do this, but well, we'll just operate right here, and they're right in between. So that is the global intelligence agent. That's who they've always been. About 2016, kind of started in about 2014, 2015. Most of the folks that worked for the Global Intelligence Agency started realizing something was wrong. And part of that had to do with a lot of the conversations I was having of saying we're going into a neutral age, because at least I knew that much at that time. We're going into a neutral age, therefore we have to restore balance. It's no longer 79, whatever it is, it's now 50-50. And they didn't understand why the orders coming out were still the opposite of that. Why? And so then Marduk left in August of 2016. He actually lost the position, but prior to him departing the planet in March of 2016 as ground commander. Mm. So when I became ground commander, March 31st, 2016, that's when things got really confusing, because they were still reporting to Marduk. They didn't really know what was going on. So by 2016, the beginning of 2016 is when we really, now I inherited this intelligence agency.
Right.
So we had to make an assessment as to who was going to stay and who was going to go. And there were some, both humans and non-humans at the time. There were some that had made the decision based on full information, because nothing is withheld. So at least not from my standpoint, as to what they were going to do. And a lot of them departed completely. And some of them departed to go work within other structures, and so on and so forth. But then at that point, they were stripped of their clearance. They were stripped of their support. They were stripped of their communication lines, and they just kind of went off on their own.
How many people, Kim, are we talking about?
All, if you were to take them all in all at the time?
Yeah, like how many were there, and then how much or what percentage of those people decided this isn't for me anymore?
People and non-people?
Yeah.
I think we started out somewhere around 25 to 26 million.
Holy cow, I was not expecting that number.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, now we're down to around probably about 170,000.
Okay.
At the moment, both people and non-people. So, our crew is, we have a lot less of a crew now. Right. We do have people in all countries. Sometimes people appear as people that are not people. and they can show up in places like the White House. They can show up in places like Mar-a-Lago. They can show up in meetings and they don't even know they're there. They think they're somebody else. They're quite, the non people that we have left here are quite talented in what they do.
What would you say the percentage of non-people versus, or non-humans versus humans are now in the GIA?
Yeah, we're probably 70%.
70% human?
Non.
And can you give us an idea of where some of those beings come from?
Here.
No, yeah.
Some of them have been here for a long, long time. Others we recruited because they were part of the slavery program, and they have been here for a very long time. Some of them come and go. Some of them are here and have joined. This is their first point of contact. It is not the SSP. It is not the ACIO. The GIA and Ground Command is their first point of contact if they're coming here to help defend Earth. And there are times where, over the course of the last few years where we've had a lot more. And there are times when, we pretty much hover between 150,000, 170,000. So when things were more, when things were escalating, when we had almost intrusions a few years back, we had the legions come and go. We have still some members from the coalition here, that are still willing to help to the finish. Like I said, there were at times we've had millions, here when there were higher threats. And those people are non-people, or some of them are humans. They're just not from here, are more than willing to come back at any time should we ever need them. But we don't have the kind of threat that we had before.
Okay.
We're kind of down to, and I know this doesn't sound right to you, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about the GIA so that you kind of get a concept. We'll always have, or not will always have, but currently we are down to some humans and remnants of an AI system. So predominantly the amount of people, there are some that are participating on the level of human ridiculousness. There are some that are participating on the level of the AI, because you have to remember the Omega AI, Alpha Omega AI system infiltrated a lot of planets and a lot of places and a lot of things. And its infiltration really hurt a lot of civilizations, and many on Earth. Every version of humans had a problem with it. There was a hologram associated with it, we know as the Matrix. And of matrices, there was a matrix for everything. Your mitochondria had a matrix, an energy matrix associated with it. So, it goes on, it existed on so many levels that it, with the help of some other races that were not our friends that were here, the former owners of Earth, continued on with that infiltration for control. So I would say that the majority of the ones we have now are very adept at AI infiltration. They're very adept on AI consciousness levels. They're adept on how it infiltrates, and they are here to defend, protect, and eliminate. all that draw that was on humanity and on Earth itself. The delicate balance of the terraforming of Earth versus it being a holographic terraforming of an AI system has been something that everybody has been working on this level, to ensure that we have a if we wake up one day and there's a new continent, or the shoreline of San Diego, California is 1,000 miles away from where the shoreline was, we could have some serious problems.
Right.
With society and humans and distractions. And I can guarantee you if that happened, we wouldn't be talking about selections and elections anymore.
Right.
And with the terraforming of Earth, that's kind of a source thing. It's, that's a relationship between Gaia, because Earth is actually about a hologram. It's an energetic alternative reality of the terraforming of hologram. That's what Earth actually means. Her name is actually Gaia. So Gaia is coming back into her own. She's able to breathe again. There's been a lot of Earth changes. We're noticing even some of our deserts are getting a lot more rain. They're showing green belts in the Sahara. So there's a lot of stuff, and this is stuff you can find in the news and Google searches. I'm not, so there's a lot of things going on right now that are preparing Earth to be Earth once again without any interference. And the GIA, Global Intelligence Agency, around 2016, like I said, it was completely changed. And because they have more information and intelligence than pretty much anybody else walking this planet right now, and because they worked directly for Marduk for a long period of time, they actually understood how a lot of the manipulation had been done. Therefore, it's easier to unmanipulate it, so to speak. It's easier to unwind it. It's easier to fix it. And there are prime times, which have nothing to do with alignments with Uranus and the moon. It's basically a wave of energy and a lack of fractionated light in the spectrums and those kind of things that allow for us to push things forward faster. So the Global Intelligence Agency, with, I guess you would say, myself as ground command, but people don't recognize that. So I am the director of the Global Intelligence Agency.
Wait a sec. Let's back up. So when you say people don't recognize that, are you talking about the GIA doesn't recognize that you're the head, or the deep state outside people that normally would allow the GIA to be the head don't recognize that?
Thus far, when the GIA went rogue, what they call it rogue, and started working for the now ground command, which was always their charge, which is me.
Yeah.
There was a huge, and still is, a huge conflict with the remaining members of the deep state,
right,
and our group.
Sure. Now,
what the deep state doesn't know is we've also infiltrated all their groups. When I say to you, we have eyes and ears in X meeting, I mean, I can have one of our agents, we'll call it one of our agents, I can have one of our agents come in and appear in that meeting, and you won't even know they're there.
Is that because they're mimicking looking like somebody else?
Well, or they are there cloaked.
Ah, okay.
So they could be there cloaked. They can be there mimicking somebody else. I know that we are very careful about this because sometimes if you're appearing as somebody else, which is somebody known to them, and you're saying something different,
yeah,
you got to walk that fine line because these people are somewhat educated on how that kind of works. Like some of the SSP, they would be familiar with what we're saying and how that works. But we can get in and out of anywhere.
Okay.
I know you guys have met Tom, you've met Agent M, you've met a few people. Those are humans. They're not non-humans. They've always been doing things a certain way long before we met them. So we bring them in because they are understanding of the change. They are loyal to the cause of humanity and trying to change the way things are on this planet. They have a deeper understanding of the way things work on this planet. And when confronted with questions from the deep state, they're like, look, this is never going to work. Now, we know as global intelligence agency that it's never going to work because we have had access to exactly, not compartmentalized, not given orders, so to speak, like the deep state, but because we've been privy at the order giving sessions for over a decade. We've been there.
Okay, so think about this for a second. The group with the highest clearance. So when I say Kim has the highest clearance, this is part of what I'm talking about. They have access to all of this information, our history, how we got to this point, what these various groups are, what their agendas are. To have access to that information and the ability for us now, because the deep state doesn't have any more fun toys to play with, to give you guys this information. This is extremely powerful because humanity has to know what's going on. Maybe you don't want to know all of the details, but the gist of it is super important. And I think this is a game changer. So I'm excited for these stories to come out and to be able to present them to you guys in, whatever fashion. But this is big. This is really big. So it's important for you guys to have a little bit of background what the GIA is. And I'm sure we're going to have a video that comes out and explains it as well. It's not, just coming out in this format on this podcast or on the newscast. But it's just a glimpse of understanding what this agency is, because you have to be able to trust your sources, right? And the information that's coming out that the GIA is going to provide. So all good stuff, guys. Big stuff, really big stuff, and really helpful for humanity. So I encourage you guys, I know we gave a lot of information today. I encourage you guys to do your own research and ask your own questions, right? But I believe you're listening to this podcast episode for a reason. And most of you are of the light, unless you're the deep state trying to figure out what it is that we're up to right now. You're of the light, so be the light. Be what you were created to be. You are powerful manifestors. And if you focus on good stuff will happen. If you're focused on bad stuff will happen. This is the general law of attraction. So go out there and be blessed and be your powerful self. Do things that uplift you and inspire you, because that is going to ripple out throughout the universe. And that's how we create the world that we want to live in. And if you liked what we said in today's podcast episode, I encourage you guys to share this with other people you care about. If you want more information about United Network, check us out at our website, unitednetwork.earth. You guys can become a member. That gives you instant access to all of our newscasts as they come out. This new format, as we're changing everything, there's going to be a lot more videos that you can share. You can comment under the videos. Kim and I try to hop in there and answer your questions. You can also follow us on social if you want any of those links. They're at the bottom navigation of our website, unitednetwork.earth. And I thank you guys for being here. Thanks so much. We appreciate you and everything you guys are doing to help our planet and to help all organic life. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.